Famous theologian A.W. Tozer once said that the most important thing about a person is what they think about when they think about God. Similarly, I think that the most important thing about a prepared citizen is their why. The reason that this is so important is that it dictates, or it should dictate, all of our decisions as a prepared citizen. This is something Joe Bruiser often talks about, is find your why. What is your main motivation for what you're doing, and let that dictate every decision, every purchase, anything that you're chasing, let it dictate that. Without a clear understanding of someone's why, we can tend to skew or misunderstand why they do certain things, and it can lead us astray because we may follow them, but our whys aren't the same. And without a clear definition of our own why, it may lead us astray. It may cause us to chase things that aren't actually moving us closer to the thing that is most important for us. So having a clear why is what is most important for the prepared citizen. And I think that clarifying and defining your own why is going to be the most important thing you do in 2025. With everything going on in the world, we're on the brink of 2 world wars going on at the same time. We've got our own issues stateside, and then with the most recent attacks in Louisiana and in Vegas, it's more important than ever for us to have our own clear definition of our whys. Now, I can't tell you your why or what it should be, but I can tell you mine and show how it dictates and shapes everything that I do. And I felt this was important to talk about at the beginning of the year because with some of the content I'll be doing down the road, it'll make more sense understanding why I do certain things or why I don't do certain things, why I make videos on certain topics and not on these topics. So I want to clarify that for the audience, and it'll make sense down the road, but also it'll help you find your own why. Now, I've talked about this in a previous video and I've mentioned it in other videos, but I feel like it's important to start from the beginning here. So why did I even get into guns? When I was a pastor, I went on a mission trip to work with a church plant in Egypt. And while I was there was a few events that really stuck out to me, and they had a lasting impact, and it changed my perspective on the world, but also on America, and ultimately what I felt like was eventually coming to America. So our travel day to Egypt was around 24 to 26 hours. I don't remember exactly, but we were exhausted, and there was obviously a big time difference. So we went to the flat and took a nap to try to get acclimated and get some rest. And we were woken up by gunfire. And I remember going out and seeing the chaos that ensued after that. And I saw what the response was, and it made me realize how much you truly are your own first responder. You are in charge of your own medical, you're in charge of your own protection, self-defense, and for those around you, and then all that comes with that afterwards, because there was no big police force that showed up. There was no news coverage. There were no ambulances that showed up. It was truly on the people of the community to care for those that were injured in that event. And the second thing that stuck with me was one of the nights when I was preaching at one of the churches, we're driving in and we drove into what essentially was a compound, and it was a steel gate with these massive concrete walls, and then inside the concrete walls were all these trees, and the trees acted as a natural barricade so that if somebody got through the concrete walls, they would then hit the trees. And then in the center of the compound is actually where the church was, and they had a school there and playgrounds and stuff for kids, but that was the environment that the churches had to live in because the churches there are frequently bombed. And it's actually why I have this tattoo, is because the Coptic Christians have this tradition of marking their kids with crosses. And there was something that happened with the Muslim invasion. It was a way to mark believers and unbelievers. And so they had to pay a religious tax. And in many cases, it led to them being killed. But it marked them as a believer. And because of that, their life would be one where they lived ostracized in their own country. So that trip followed up by other trips, subsequent trips to Guatemala and to Mexico, and just working here stateside made me realize how important it was to be a prepared citizen, and not just prepared for my own safety, but to care for the flock. So when we think about being a pastor as being a shepherd, part of being a shepherd is caring for the flock, both spiritually and physically. And now, while you may not be a pastor or you may not even be a believer, you do have a responsibility to care for your family, for your household, for your friends, for your community. At least that's how I feel about my role in my community. So coming out of all of that, my goal was to be prepared to care for whoever God places under my care. And that could simply just mean my family. And I wanted to be able to care for them both spiritually and physically in whatever situation would arise. Because while I visited other countries, one of the big things that I found out or realized was how certain people get into the country, and it really opened my eyes to who gets into the country and what it takes for them to get in. Now, I don't want to dive into the politics of all that, but it just opened my eyes to it and made me realize that what we see in other countries will eventually be here. It's just a matter of time. No civilization, no country has stood the test of time. They all eventually come to their end. and it's only a matter of time before America does. I'm not saying that will happen in our lifetime, but whatever does come our way, I want to be prepared to care for the people around me. So that started my journey into firearms, and then started my journey into training and being a prepared citizen, and that continues to be my goal. So why did I start YouTube? After leaving ministry, I found work in the firearms industry, and in that work, I found that I had access to a lot of really cool gear and some really cool people. And I was getting a lot of the same questions over and over again about instructors or about things I was learning or about gear that I had access to. So I was like, well, why don't I just start making videos about this to try to help people make educated decisions about instructors or their own training or the gear they're purchasing. And that's really what got me started on YouTube. I just wanted to help other people who were kind of on the same journey as I was of wanting to be a prepared citizen. And then I realized that I got to meet some really cool people and do some really cool things. And so as I was doing more and more of those things, I was like, man, I really don't want to miss out on these moments, because I think about my dad and the conversations we have about all the cool stuff he did. I wish that I could go back and see some of those things, or even things that I've done. Like when we were in Egypt, there's a lot of stuff we couldn't film and photograph because of just how things are there, that I couldn't capture some of those moments. And I regret that, because I can see the images in my head and I can't share them with people, but I wanted to share the moments I was going through in this new career that I had in the firearms industry. So I started documenting what I was doing, whether that was training or people I got to hang out with or gear that I got to test or use or just was excited about. And somewhere along the way, I think I lost a bit of that. I got distracted by making content I thought people wanted to see rather than making the content that I was just passionate about. The stuff that I was learning, the stuff that I was really excited about. And whether people watched it or not, I didn't do it for the views. I was doing it because I wanted to help people and I was documenting my own journey. And to some degree, I think I felt obligated to make certain videos that weren't really what I wanted to make. So as I'm going into 2025, the changes that I'm making are getting back to documenting and sharing the things that I'm most passionate about and the things that I think are most important. And there's more to that than just guns and just shooting, because being a prepared citizen is more than just guns and shooting. So to give a clearer picture of how my why has shaped things that I've done, last year when I shot matches with a gun that had a light, had a laser, and had a suppressor. Didn't have a brake on it, didn't use 6ARC or 6 Max or whatever other cartridge. And that's because that's the gun that if something happened, that's what I would use. For me, matches were a form of training to prepare myself for whatever may come. And that's how I viewed it. So I wanted to train with the gun that I would use. And it's the same reason I shoot the same gun over and over again. And people wonder why I don't shoot this gun or that gun. It's like, dude, I want to get really good with what I have, right? Like I want to be proficient with what I have and know and trust that thing versus jumping from gun to gun to gun to gun. And that's not to say guys who do that are bad in doing that. It's just not for me. That's just not my goals. That doesn't feed my why, the why behind what I do. So I would encourage you to find your why in 2025 if you haven't already. And if you have, I would encourage you to write it down and use that as an anchor to hold you in the midst of the tossing sea that is the gun industry, where the fads go back and forth and they're constantly chasing the next thing. Use that to hold you firm so that you stay focused on what is most important to you, and use that to guide your training, use it to guide the instructors that you sign up for classes with, use it to guide the influencers and the voices you listen to, use it to guide your purchases, use it to guide your goals, use it to guide everything that you do, and it'll get you closer to where you want to be by the end of the year. Lastly, thank you guys for supporting the channel. The likes, the subscribe, the karate chopping, the bell, the comments, it all helps. But do me a favor, and I want to help you guys and put out content that is beneficial to you. So if there is something you want to see this year, if there's an instructor you want to see, if there's a topic you want to see covered, leave it in the comments down below, because I want to put out content that you guys find beneficial. That's the big thing. Like I want to put out content that matters. I don't want to put out empty, mindless content. So leave it in the comments below if there's something you want to see, and I'll do my best to make it happen. Appreciate you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. Karate chop that bell so you get notified every time I upload a video, and I will see you guys in the next one.